Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another episode of Learn to Play Games. My name is Lance, and today we're going to take a look at Dice of Crowns. This is a brand new game from Thing 12 Games. It is a 2 to 6 player game that takes roughly 15 to 20 minutes to play. In the game, the backstory is that the old king has died, and now all the rival houses are competing to get their person crowned as the new king. So in the game, each player is going to take a turn rolling the dice and trying to gain 3 crowns in order to get a golden coin. The first player that gets 3 golden coins will be the winner and be crowned the new king. So my impressions so far, for first off, the positives, this is an absolute blast. I've had a ton of fun with this game. I've had a chance to bring it to my friend's house and play it with them a couple times. Everybody has loved this game. If you're into dice games, if you like backstabbing type of games or anything like that, and you like quick games, highly recommend checking this one out. This is one of my top picks so far this year as far as a small box game is concerned. And if I had an award for my channel yet, this would be one that I would give it to. This game is a ton of fun. I've had an absolute blast playing it. It really does meet those ideals that it has. You are going to be rolling those dice and competing against the other players. You're going to be trying to bargain with other players so that they don't end up backstabbing you. And you're going to have alliances going between players. And as you give out dice to players, you're going to get the players that you feel like they roll better than other players. So it's just so much fun. So if you get a chance to play this game, definitely give it a go. If you got some extra money laying around, I would highly recommend picking it up, as you won't regret it. It is a great game. As far as downsides, I really didn't see any in this game. Of course, it's a small box game, so and it's a dice game, so if you're not a big fan of dice games or you just like the longer games, then obviously this one isn't going to meet your needs. But it even has some variant rules in it, so you can change up how different things are played or the length of the game by adding some of these alternative rules in there. So even after you've played it a number of times, you can change it up by adding some of these new and interesting rules into the game. So let's head to the table and I'll teach you guys how to play. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at the dice you're going to get in the game. So you're going to get 7 dice, and each dice is a 6-sided dice that are going to have these facings on it. So you'll have 1 crown symbol, 1 betrayal symbol, 2 skull symbols, and 2 scroll symbols on each dice. And those symbols are going to mean different things during your turn. So when you roll crowns, if you can gain 3 crowns during your turn, you'll get a gold coin. If you get 3 or more daggers during your turn, then you are betrayed and your turn will end and you can't score any points. If you can get 5 skulls during your turn, again, you could trade them in for 1 gold coin. And the scrolls, if you roll those during your turn, those will be given to your rivals in any way you choose. They will roll them, and depending upon the results, you may get those dice back to reroll. For board setup, it's very easy. The first thing you're going to do is place out all the gold coins, and you can place out the crown with them. And then whoever the starting player is, you can give them the 7 dice. In order to determine the starting player, you can do it any manner you choose. The easy way I found to do it is you also get these other coins in the game, which we're going to cover their use in a little bit. But I would grab one of these for each player, except for 1, and then include 1 there. So if you're playing with 6 players, you would include 5 blue and 1 golds. You would mix those up and have each player draw randomly, and the player that gets the gold coin will be the starting player. From there, then the player can go ahead and start by rolling their dice. So whoever the starting player is, they can go ahead and roll their dice. Okay, so first things are first. So the crowns will be stored by that player. If he can get 3 crowns, then he will get a gold coin. If he rolls any daggers, those will also be docked in his area and cannot be re-rolled. And if he gets 3 of those, his turn will end immediately. Finally, any skulls that he have will be placed in front of him. If he can get 5 skulls, then he can also gain a gold coin. And finally, the scrolls must be resolved before any re-rolls are attempted. So for each scroll that he rolls, he must choose to give that to one of his rivals. He can choose to give all the scrolls to one rival or divide them up any way he wants to. So once he does, then those rivals will go ahead and roll those dice. And depending upon the results, will have different effects. So if a rival rolls a crown, then they can store that crown on their side and keep that dice, and will be able to use it during their turn to help them potentially get a coin. For each rival that rolls a betrayal symbol, they can choose to give that symbol to any player, and that will affect that player during that turn, or during their turn. Finally, if a player rolls a skull, that will be returned to our player and will potentially help them to gain a coin if they can get enough of them. Or if the player rolls another scroll, then that is returned to our player as well. Once all the rivals have rolled the dice and been resolved, then our player can choose to re-roll dice. He can re-roll any scrolls that he has or any skulls that he has. Now, if he chooses to re-roll a dice, he must re-roll all of those symbols. So if he chose to re-roll the skulls, then he would have to re-roll all of them. As he only has one dice and no potential to get 5 skulls, he's going to go ahead and re-roll all of these dice. Okay, so at this point he has enough dice for a crown, or for a gold coin, but he must resolve all the scrolls first. So again, he would give that to one of his rivals. They're going to roll and resolve, and so that comes back to him. At this point, he can trade in his 3 crowns for a gold coin. And then he would pass all the dice that he has to the next player. Now that player, since he already has a crown, will only get to roll these dice as the other player has that dice locked over there. So he would go ahead and roll, and the process would continue. So these would have to be divided up, and then he would continue until either he gains a coin or he's unable to roll any dice during his turn or chooses to stop. This is going to continue until the first player is able to gain 3 coins. When that happens, that player will receive the crown and will be the winner of the game. Let's go ahead and take a look at the advanced play options now. So there are 5 different options the players can choose to include, and you can choose to include any or all of these options in your games. So the first is that the players would need 5 gold coins to win the game instead of 3. And this will just add some length to your game. The next option is the Mistress of Fate. If you're going to play with her, then you would add the Fate tokens in as well. And the way this works is the active player may settle for Fate coins at the end of their turn or re-roll skulls. 3 betrayals is still going to prevent any tokens from being earned. So as you guys can see on this chart on the side, it depends on how many of the skulls you roll will be how many of the Fate coins you can get. For each 3 skulls that you have, you can choose to trade those in for 1 Fate coin. So if you get 6 skulls, then you would receive 2 Fate coins during your turn. Now there's one other thing. If you happen to get 3 crowns and 3 skulls, then you can choose to trade those in, and you would receive 1 gold coin and 1 Fate coin. Now there are 2 different ways the Fate coins can be used. The active player that has 1 Fate coin can choose to discard that Fate coin to re-roll any one of their dice in their possession. And this can bypass any restrictions, locked dice, etc. So if the player has a dagger, he could choose to spend a Fate coin to re-roll that dagger. Even though normally you cannot choose to re-roll daggers, that Fate coin will allow him to re-roll that dagger, or any of his other dice that he would like to. Now the other option for Fate coins is if you happen to have 2 of them, you can choose to discard those at any time and force any player to re-roll 1 dice. And this can be done at any time during the game, and this can cause the player to thwart a victory or defeat. So for example, let's go ahead and say that one of our players has 4 gold coins, and he just needs 1 more to win the game. He happens to roll the 3 crowns that he needs, but our other player over there does have 2 Fate coins that he could trade in and cause him to re-roll one of those crowns and potentially cost him the victory for that round. The 4th optional rule is the overkill and cascading betrayal. This is going to allow you to give out additional betrayal symbols if you happen to have them. So if a player rolls more than 3 daggers in their turn, the 3 will end their turn, but the extra ones can be divided up among any of the rivals of their choice, up to a maximum of 3 additional daggers. So if our player had rolled 6 daggers, he can choose to give 3 of these to any of his rivals of his choice, including all to 1, which would end their turn immediately once it got to their turn. Another optional rule is the legendary dice rolls, which basically means that the player must roll 7 of the same symbol. If a player can accomplish this, then they will receive the benefits listed. So, as you guys can see on the chart here, for 7 crowns, that is the birthright, and that player will gain 2 gold coins instead of the normal 1. If the players can get 7 skulls, they have 2 choices. They can have the Twists of Fate, which means that they can steal 1 gold coin from any rival of their choice, or they could have the Messenger, which means that they are immune to daggers until their next roll. And then finally, if a player is unlucky enough to roll 7 of the daggers, that is the Crimson Feast, and they will lose 1 of their gold coins if they have any. And their turn will end immediately. The last optional rule is the last stand rule. And with this rule, it's going to mean that a player that is going to win the game must hold the crown for an entire turn. So if you're playing the game that has 5 coins being the winning amount, when the player reaches 4 coins and would receive the 5th, instead of receiving the 5th coin, they would receive the crown. At this point, that player must hold the crown for an entire round. If another player would receive the 5th coin, instead they would take the crown from that player. On top of this, if they're playing with some of the other special rules, for example, if they're playing with the legendary dice rules, once the crown is in play, if a player happens to roll 7 crowns, they will steal it, or if they roll 7 skulls and choose to steal from a player. They can choose to steal no matter how many coins that player has. So even if that player has 1 coin and happens to roll the 7 skulls, he can choose to steal the crown instead of a coin. And that player can win if they're able to hold that crown for an entire turn. Now again, when a player has the crown and it gets back to their turn, they still must roll the dice 1 time to determine if they roll enough daggers. And they still have to resolve any scrolls that are rolled. Once that roll is completely resolved, then they can choose to end their turn regardless, and if they have the crown, then they will win the game. Well, I hope that gave you guys a good idea of how Dice of Crowns is played. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And as always, thanks very much for watching. I really appreciate you guys taking the time. And if you find my videos helpful, if you like what I do and you want to support me, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel, as it really does make a big difference. Thanks, and I'll see you guys later.